right, we are continuing to follow breaking news. Texas Education Agency announcing a state takeover of Fort Worth ISD. Our Sean Rabb just got done talking with Mike Morath, head of the TEA. What was said? Because they were supposed to do a live news conference, and then it changed to more of an interview style format, and you're the guy.
That's right. I just got off of a Zoom interview with Commissioner Mike Morath, where he informs us today that they are going to appoint a board of managers to take over, if you will, the Fort Worth Independent School District. This won't happen overnight. It's a many months process. In fact, they want the board of managers to be folks from Fort Worth who volunteer for this position, and there'll be a way to apply through the TEA website for all of that. We'll have more of that information later. But he explained to me, I asked him, Commissioner, why now?
Yeah. Right.
You know, the district has seemingly made some improvements and strides. I believe failing schools are down from 31 to 11. There have been great improvements in other places, including A-performing schools. Yeah. He shared with me that while they have made great strides, there are other schools in the district where the numbers are going in the wrong direction in terms of what's happening in the classroom, in terms of achievement, in terms of learning. And so because of that, they've made this decision. How it works, again, the superintendent will be removed along with the trustees. Board of managers in place. They will have a nationwide search for a superintendent, and Dr. Molinar can apply to be part of that.
She's new. She was appointed to turn things around, and by many accounts has.
Yes, and he made a point to say she's made great strides in the last 7-8 months. But at the same time, again, that some numbers have improved, other numbers are not improving, and that's troubling for the district.
So you mentioned that this was a process. It's a long process once it starts. However, doesn't Fort Worth ISD have 30 days to appeal this?
I don't believe the district is going to appeal.
Oh,
now, I haven't spoken to anyone in Fort Worth, but I don't believe the district is going to appeal this, not at this point. I think, in fact, their message yesterday, the statement that the district put out yesterday, seemed to indicate to me, in my reading it and understanding it, that whatever happens with TEA, they're going to move forward, which means go along with that. I don't think they're going to challenge it.
I think there was one of those schools that have had an F rating 5 times.
5 years.
5 years in a row. So they had to know that this was coming soon.
But they closed that school, right?
So yes, they closed that school. But the way the rules are written, if you will, that governs our public school systems, when it gets to this point, the commissioner, TEA, they have 2 choices. Either close all schools that are not doing well, or leave the schools open and take over the district.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teachers, just speaking from some teachers, public school teachers, that would argue we had not seen, or them speaking, hadn't seen an increase in public funding for schools in what it was like 16 years. It was like since 1991 or something, like since they had seen an increase in school funding. So a lot of them are saying, we were working with what the state, was giving us.
Right, and even with the increase in funding in this last legislative session, but part of what teachers really wanted was the increase in the funding per student per day. That particular funding is still lacking. Right. Yet at the same time, there are other public school districts who, with the funding that they have from the state, are managing it, and he pointed that out. Commissioner Morath said, look, Dallas is doing far better than Fort Worth. And we also talked about the Houston Independent School District, the most recent to be taken over. He tells me there are no failing schools now. There were 120 failing schools plus in HISD.
Wow.
He says now there are no failing schools.
All right, so you talked about your interview. We have been able to turn that around, so let's go ahead and listen.
What we have announced today is that the enforcement decision that we're making, that we're required to make under state law, is to install a board of managers for Fort Worth ISD. So this is not actually happening today. There's a lot of process that we will unfold over the coming months. But the decision is to install a board of managers. A board of managers has the same powers and duty as an elected board of trustees. We will choose individuals from Fort Worth to serve on that board of managers. We're looking for a broad base of experiences, differences in background, including parents, community leaders, professionals, and the like, that are united in their belief that if we as adults organize ourselves correctly, that all children can learn and achieve at high levels. So
Commissioner, let me ask you, can I ask you why now? It seems like the district has turned things around. I believe failing schools went from 31 to 11, and
it's a great question. So there has been, and I will certainly commend the Superintendent Molinar for over the last 8 or 9 months, work to try to improve that district. But at the same time, we've actually seen an increase in the number of chronically unacceptable campuses. Back in 2022, there were 8 multi-year academically unacceptable campuses. Today, there are 20. And even with some of the more recent improvements in the district, still only 34% of students in Fort Worth are meeting grade level. That is a full 16 percentage points below state average. It's way below the numbers in Dallas and Houston. There has been very significant chronic problems with that district's central office ability to support its campuses and support teachers so that they can really unlock the potential of kids in our classroom. It's really incumbent upon us to ensure that we, the adults that are in charge of those school systems, give the kids our absolute best, our best effort, and that effort actually has to deliver results.
what happens to the superintendent now? She's new. I don't believe she's been in position a year yet, Commissioner.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So again, today what we are announcing is that we will be appointing a board of managers, and we'll be asking for individuals in Fort Worth to volunteer. We have a website where individuals can go to if they'd like to say, hey, I'd like to serve on the board of managers. While that process is unfolding, we will be conducting a search process for who the appointed superintendent is, because when a board of managers is named, by law, the commissioner also has to appoint a superintendent. So we'll be interviewing the best and brightest leaders from the state and from the country for consideration for that job. That will include an interview of Dr. Karen Molinar. She has certainly earned an opportunity to interview for the role, given the work that she's done over the last several months at the helm of the district. No decision has been made with regard to who the superintendent will be. We will announce that decision at the end of that search process.
I realize all of this is happening now, lots of moving parts, but how soon do you anticipate having your board of managers in place, the current trustees removed? And once this happens, how long is this process where this board of managers will be in place? A year?
Yeah, great questions. Yeah, I think for parents and for the staff of Fort Worth ISD, one important message is today, nothing is changing. The elected board of trustees still oversees that school district's superintendent. Molinar is still in charge. So for the staff of the district, keep doing what you do every day, which is to try to mold eager young minds, to love them and teach them. For parents, they should not expect to see any immediate changes. We will be going through a multiple month process to recruit, interview, and prepare a set of community members from Fort Worth to serve on that board. And that would likely then take place sometime in the spring when that board of managers would begin their service, same time that we will name the superintendent. That's the first part of your question. Second part of your question is, how long does this intervention last? So what we are looking for, these are temporary interventions. These are always temporary interventions. We get in, we attempt to change the systems that have caused low levels of academic engagement from students, and then we get out. The question is, how long does that take? And that is, in fact, somewhat of an unknown question with precision, because this is a lot of upgrades to curriculum, upgrades to support of teachers, that sort of thing that will have to happen. We will be looking for evidence that the district has changed their internal systems to such a degree that there are no more multi-year failing campuses. This is the basic moral commitment we have to have in public education to children. Children need to have access to great schools, and we don't live in a utopia, so there will be from time to time that a school may struggle individually. But we cannot have a situation where schools struggle 4, 5, 6, 8 years in a row without any kind of academically acceptable environment for kids. So our primary exit condition is that there are no more multi-year failing campuses. When we reach that condition, whether it's 1 year from now, 2 years from now, we will then revert back and start the process of rolling back to the elected school board at that time.
All right, that's, of course, Mike Morath there. I thought it was interesting that process that you were talking about will include input from teachers, parents, and community leaders.
Yes.
That'll be interesting. That'll happen over the next couple of months.
Yes, and it'll be a fast-moving wheel, but it will be a long-moving wheel to get down the road.
Yeah.
And he did tell me that this was a very difficult decision and day for him to do this. They don't want to step in. They really don't.
Right.
But they know they have to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear the response now from Fort Worth ISD, from the Fort Worth mayor, from
Community
the current
and parents.
superintendent.
Yeah, exactly.
So much more to come. Stay with Fox 4. We'll continue to update this as the day goes on and as this whole process goes on. I know you'll be following it. Thank you, Sean.
Sean, we appreciate it.
Yeah.